Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to Bible Study Thursday, and my name's John, one of the pastors of H2O. We're meeting here in my kitchen this morning. Today is kind of a dark, gloomy day, and so I had to move my location. Wanted to fill you in on what we've been doing, and if you haven't already gotten a cup of coffee and a notepad, uh, you're going to want to take notes today. There's a lot of cool stuff I want to share. We've been going over the Psalms for the last 2 weeks, the theology of the Psalms, and you can find that there on our Facebook page. And this last Tuesday, I talked about transcendence and immanence, two big words that mean God's far awayness and God's intimacy. And I found that very helpful to a lot of people. So you can check that out. You can also find Psalm 31, Psalm 22, and Psalm 3 if you look around a little bit, as well as Steve's Mental Mondays, which have been extremely popular. So hope you have your cup of coffee. I don't know if you can see this or if it's backwards. I have my OSU, Ohio State mom. Apparently, this is not my mug. Hey, I want to mention David here just for a minute before we get started. Uh, David was this warrior poet. And so he was a strong dude. He was a fighter, but he was also an artist. He was a writer. And the Psalms are actually songs, and they would actually be sung. Hey, Carrie, good morning. Um, and so we have this guy that is a melancholic and really in touch with his emotions. And so he's able to guide us into our hearts. And so I think it was John Calvin that said, I think it was Calvin that said, the the Psalms are an anatomy of the soul. We go into all sorts of emotions that a lot of us don't feel comfortable praying, and we should. So I want to take just a minute and share the acronym that I've shared with you guys before. And if you've already written this down in your notes, you're going to want to write this down again because there's a little tweak to it that makes all the difference in the world. So the acronym Psalm, Psalm. Psalm is what is the psalmist feeling or doing? And that doing part is what we didn't have on there before. And as we look at Psalm 18, we're going to see it's just going to unfold the scripture for us. S is the situation. What is the situation? We look at the superscription, the little text above the psalm, and we look within the psalm as well. A is what does the psalmist ask or assert? And and then we ask L, which is what does this psalm say about the Lord? And M, what does this psalm say about me? And that's all very subjective. So I want to give kind of a 1 minute walkthrough of the psalm real quick, and then we're going to talk through it. So this is going to be fast. Verse 1, I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and deliverer, my God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. The cords of death encompassed me. The torrents of destruction assailed me. The cords of Sheol entangled me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress, I called upon the Lord. To my God, I cried for help. From his temple, he has heard my voice, and my cry reached his ears. I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. If you look over at verse 18, they confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into a broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. Look down at verse 25. With the merciful, you show yourself merciful. With the blameless man, you show yourself blameless. With the purified, you show yourself pure. And with the crooked, you make yourself seem tortuous. I think the New American Standard says astute. Verse 28, For it is you who light my lamp. The Lord is my God and lightens my darkness. For by you I can run against a troop, and by my God I can leap over a wall. Verse 33, he made my feet like the feet of a deer, and he set me secure on the heights. Verse 35, you have given me the shield of your salvation, and your right hand has supported me, and your gentleness. And that word there is condescension. It's of a king stooping down. That's the word gentleness. Your gentleness has made me great. So I just want to give you a quick overview of that. As we look at the situation here, the superscription is very helpful because it says, to the choir master, so this was to be sung, a psalm of David, the servant of the Lord, who addressed the words of this song to the Lord. That is, he spoke this to God on the day when the Lord rescued him from the hand of all of his enemies and from the hand of Saul. So let me just give a quick overview of David's life before we go any further. David came from a dysfunctional family where he was hated by his brothers, and his dad did not think very highly of him. And then he steps onto the stage as he takes down Goliath and invokes the jealousy of King Saul, who chases him around in the wilderness for maybe 7 years as David is running for his life and writing psalms. Saul is killed, and this psalm right here alludes to his death. David becomes king, and David is a very good and righteous king for a season of time. And this is going to enable us to place this psalm pretty precisely. And then David sins greatly with Bathsheba, and his family life goes downhill from there. So what I want to point out here is that David says that he spoke this on the day of victory when Saul died. So we can place this psalm very precisely, but also as the Lord rescued him from all his enemies. So as you look over toward the end of the psalm, if you look at verse 43, you have made me the head of the nations. People whom I had not known served me. As soon as they heard of me, they obeyed me. Verse 50, great salvation God brings to his king. And so this is not right after David defeated, or it wasn't right after Saul was put to death. This is later. And yet you see in the psalm, he hasn't sinned in a great way with Bathsheba. So this is during his kingly reign when things are going pretty well. So there's a lot of information we can glean from that. But now let's look at what he's feeling and what he's doing. And this is so rich. In all of our other studies, we've looked at what he has been feeling. And you can see feelings here. There's a lot of feelings, but I want to bypass that because I want to talk about what he's doing. So this is new to our system of studying the scripture, and it's really been really helpful for me even today. So in verses 1 and 2, I love you, O Lord. That word Lord there, if you notice, it's in all caps. That's God's personal name, Yahweh. That is, he's speaking to the God that has shown up in history. It's important to notice little things like that. So I love you, O God, who has shown up in history. I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield, the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. What is David doing? David is gushing praise over God's victory, and he is speaking back to God all of the attributes of God. Now, let's just get real practical here. So Jesus taught us when we're to pray that we can say, our Father who art in heaven. Our Father is immanence, the God that draws near. Who art in heaven is transcendence, the God who sits on his throne. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And what David adds to this is he starts listing out all that God means to him. God, you are my rock. You are my fortress. You are my refuge. Now, just think about what that might do to your understanding of reality today and your relationship with God if you were to begin by saying, God, I just thank you that you are my Savior. You saved me. You are my shepherd. I am the sheep. You're the shepherd guiding my life. You are my wonderful counselor. I need help, and you give me direction. You are my strength. I am the one that is weak. You are the one that is strong. And as we list all of these attributes back to God, we just begin to see how awesome and how big he is. Okay. So if you go on in verses 4 through 6, I hope that was helpful. That was really practical and really practical to me this morning as I prayed. So David felt overwhelmed in verses 4 and 5. The cords of death encompassed me. The torrents of destruction assailed me. The cords of Sheol entangled me. That was the Hebrew understanding of the place of the dead. So really, all he's saying was, I was afraid I was going to die. But as a creative, as a melancholic, he deeply taps into this imagery. And so not all of us are melancholic and creative. So this is really cool because what this can do, if we study this and we look for metaphor, we can begin to tap into how we feel about things, if that makes sense. All right. Another thing, as you walk through this psalm and you ask just this question, what is the psalmist doing? We started by saying he lists out all these attributes of God. There's a second thing that's really powerful. David credits God with all the blessings in his life. He says, you're my strength, for example. He, in verses 25 through 28, he basically says, you're my revelation. He says, you're my strength. When he gets to verse 32, he says, you're the God who has equipped me with strength and made me blameless. Like any character I have, you built that into me. When he talks about walking with hinds feet, God, you're the one who is teaching me how to not fall away, how to not sin. When he receives honor, he says, God, that's from you. And the reason I want to share this with you guys is everything that we have in our life is a gift. Everything. And so I was praying this morning and just thinking, even my love for God, any passion that I have, God, you put that passion in me. You created that faith in me. If I have any ounce of humility, God, you are the one that has taught me that. If I have any kindness, and just to give God honor for all the things that he has done and all the ways that he has shaped our life. So let's just pause and think about this for a minute. What David is doing is telling God who he is and giving God credit for all the things that God has done in his life. And what that does on an emotional level is that lifts us up. It, especially during this time when we're dealing with anxiety and stress, it brings us into a new place. On Sundays, we've been talking about how there's this fog of doubt and our vision of reality gets obscured by our emotions. So look over at verse 28. It is you who light my lamp. The Lord my God lightens my darkness. So this is metaphor, right? Like God isn't there clicking a lamp. He is describing God metaphorically. You light my lamp. So my lamp would be my vision, my knowledge of the world, of people around me, my perspective. God, you're the one that gives me perspective and vision and hope. For it is it is you who light my lamp. The Lord my God lightens my darkness. Now, okay, this is really encouraging to me. My darkness is my sorrow, my depression, my confusion, my ignorance of what should I do. And David here, because he tells God who he is, gives God honor for all the things he's done in his life, realizes that nothing is coming from himself, real practically, that opens up his eyes to see what God is doing in his life and enlightens his emotions. So this is just really, really rich. I think I'm going overtime right now. I'm just going to share for a few more minutes here. Uh, Again, all we're answering is what did the psalmist do? Verse 49 says, "From this I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations and sing to your name." What is the psalmist doing? He's publicly and unashamedly giving praise and thanks to God. And again, this to me, David is like a prayer partner, an older, more mature person saying, I want to show you how to pray, how to talk to God. And this really affected me that I am invited. This is a mirror saying, do you give God public and vocal praise? Just a few more things, because this is so rich. In verse 6, notice, in my distress, I called upon the Lord. To my God, I cried for help. From his temple, he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears. And in the first 40 Psalms, I think David says, you hear my prayer about 22 times. Now think about how simple that is. And think about how you could read the Psalm and just miss that. But this is a very big part of my prayer life, because when I say, God, I know that right now you have inclined your ear in heaven to me, and I know right now that you have heard my voice. It enables me to really be in the moment with God and to not be mindlessly speaking, but to be speaking from my heart to God. And so, very practically, reminding yourself that God hears your prayer is so helpful. Verse 19, few more things. He brought me out into a broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. A broad place that's a metaphor also. And it's a metaphor of freedom and peace. Like imagine a meadow. Imagine being hemmed in and then by life circumstances, and then it opens up into this broad meadow. That's what David, with this metaphor, is saying. You've brought me into a place of heart, freedom, and peace. What a great thing for us to be praying. And then he rescued me because he delighted in me. And that word delighted literally means to bend or to curve, to incline to take pleasure in, to delight in. It's a very rich word. And I wonder how many of us would ever say that to God. I wonder if any of us would grasp his delight in those who have trusted him for salvation enough to say, God, thank you that you delight in me. Thank you that you love to hear my voice and that you rejoice over me. So, man, this is a rich, rich psalm. One more thing, last thing. Verse 31, who is God but the Lord, and who is a rock except our God? So what is David doing here? He is asserting through rhetorical questioning that there is no one but God. There is no other God but Yahweh. There's no one who is in control. My circumstances are not God. My emotions are not God. Nothing else is God. but Yahweh, the one who's entered history and saved us through Jesus. So I hope this is helpful to you. This is a very rich psalm, and I want to encourage you to do something right now. I want to encourage you to take this and go talk to God and tell God what his attributes are. Remind yourself of all the things that God has done for you and see if that doesn't lift your heart and your spirit. Real quickly, today, this being Thursday, I want to encourage you guys to consider doing a digital Sabbath. 24 hours, turn off your technology and enjoy God. Remember him as creator. I did want to let you know I'm no longer going to do Friday Facebook Lives. I'm adjusting my schedule to greater balance, just so you know. And this Sunday, please join us at 10:15. I think it's going to be a fun time. I hope to show a video with Bono and Eugene Peterson, and we're going to talk about how to elevate your hope through prayer. So I hope this morning was as encouraging to you as it was to me, because it was really encouraging to me. All right. See you guys soon.